My journey with anxiety, how I learned to cope with it. A few years ago, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of constant anxiety. I was working in a job that required a lot of focus and adherence to deadlines, and over time, I began to feel an immense weight on my shoulders. Every night, I would go to bed, and my mind would not stop working, analyzing every little mistake, thinking about what I needed to do the next day, and fearing failure. This had a significant impact on my daily life. I lost my appetite, began suffering from persistent headaches, and felt like I was losing control of my time. Even the moments I used to enjoy, like going out with friends or watching a movie, no longer provided me with the same sense of comfort. At a certain point, I realized that I couldn't continue this way. I decided to seek solutions, starting with practicing meditation and deep breathing every morning, and I set a simple rule for myself. When I feel anxiety taking over, I write down all my fears on a piece of paper. This exercise helped me organize my thoughts and view them from a calmer perspective. I also learned the importance of talking to others. When I started sharing my feelings with a close friend, I realized that I wasn't alone in this and that there are ways to cope with anxiety without letting it control my life. Gradually, I began to regain my balance and became more aware of how to handle moments of stress. Today, I still experience bouts of anxiety from time to time, but it no longer paralyzes me like it used to. I have learned that anxiety is a part of life, but it shouldn't dominate it. When anxiety became overwhelming, my journey in search of solutions. At one point in my life, I found myself engulfed in anxiety and exhaustion. I felt pressured all the time, as if there was an endless list of tasks that needed to be accomplished. Even when I tried to relax, my mind refused to stop racing, leaving me in a state of constant tension. This exhaustion was not only physical, but also mental. I felt like I lacked the energy even to carry out the simplest daily activities. When I realized that I could not continue this way, I decided to seek solutions to help me cope with my anxiety. I started experimenting with some traditional methods, and the results were varied. Meditation and deep breathing. I began practicing meditation for a few minutes each day, trying to focus on my breath and let negative thoughts pass without clinging to them. At first, I found it difficult to calm my mind, but over time, this habit became an effective way to clear my thoughts and reduce stress. Exercising. I had always heard about the benefits of exercise in reducing anxiety, so I started walking daily. It wasn't easy at first, but after several weeks, I noticed that I felt more at ease after walking, as if the tension dissipated with each step. Reducing caffeine and regulating sleep. I was used to drinking coffee several times a day, but I noticed that it increased my anxiety. When I started cutting back on caffeine and sleeping at regular times, I saw an improvement in my energy levels and my ability to concentrate. Talking to others. Realizing that I was not alone in this feeling had a significant impact. When I began sharing my feelings with a close friend, I felt a greater sense of relief. Speaking aloud about my fears helped me put things into perspective and lessen their impact. Writing down thoughts and fears. I tried keeping a journal where I write down my fears every night before bed. This simple exercise helped clear my mind and reduce overthinking at night, making my sleep more peaceful. What worked and what didn't? Some of these methods were more effective than others. For instance, meditation and deep breathing were among the most helpful tools for calming myself during stressful moments. In contrast, simply reducing caffeine was not enough to alleviate anxiety, but it helped when it was part of a more balanced lifestyle. Over time, I realized that anxiety would not disappear completely, but it no longer controlled my life as it once did. I learned that managing it requires commitment and trying different approaches until I find what works for me. Most importantly, I learned to be kinder to myself and to recognize that feeling anxious at times is a natural part of life. My journey with Ruqya. From curiosity to understanding. I didn't know much about Ruqya at first, and I wasn't sure if it was just a religious ritual or a genuine therapeutic method that could help alleviate anxiety and stress. I would hear about it from time to time, especially from the elders in my family, but I didn't pay much attention to it. How did you first get to know about Ruqya? My curiosity about Ruqya began when I was going through a period of intense stress and constant anxiety. A close friend advised me to try it, pointing out that it involves reciting verses from the Holy Quran and prophetic supplications that are believed to protect a person from evil and help them feel at ease. Ace. At first, I wasn't entirely convinced, but I decided to look into it more. Initial doubts and fears. As I started reading more about Ruqya, I had some questions and doubts. Is it just a spiritual practice, or does it have a real psychological effect? Can it serve as a substitute for traditional methods like meditation and therapy? Does everyone who claims to practice Ruqya do it correctly, or are there some myths surrounding it? I also feared that relying solely on Ruqya without taking other practical steps, like improving my lifestyle, was merely escaping the problem rather than providing a real solution. My first experience and its impact. After reviewing the verses of legitimate Ruqya and listening to some recitations, I decided to try it myself. Initially, it felt like just a regular reading of the Quran, but over time, I began to notice its calming effect. I would listen to Ruqya before sleep, and sometimes I would recite some supplications mentioned by the Prophet, such as, I seek refuge with the perfect words of Allah from the evil of what He has created. In the name of Allah, with whose name nothing in the earth or the heavens can cause harm, and He is the all-hearing, the all-knowing. Over time, I noticed that I felt more at ease. It was greater when listening to the Ruqya, especially when recited in a calm voice while focusing on its meanings. It wasn't like magic or an instant solution, but it was a means of calming that made me feel more connected to God and less anxious about the things that were bothering me. What did I learn? Ruqya is not a substitute for psychological and scientific solutions, but it can be an effective means of reassurance alongside other methods such as meditation and exercise. Its impact depends on belief in it. The tranquility it brings stems from the feeling of protection and closeness to God. Not everyone who claims to practice Ruqya does so correctly, so it is important to rely on trustworthy sources like the Quran and Sunnah. Today, I see Ruqya as an additional tool that helps me calm myself during times of anxiety, alongside the other habits I have adopted. It is no longer just curiosity, it has become part of my journey toward feeling inner peace.